Morning, everybody. Middeloltio. We're going to get started very shortly here. First of all, I want to welcome everybody back to the 20th anniversary of the Marshall decision. It's a true honor to be here today. It's a true honor to be a part of this, and what amazing work that is happening here. So first of all, how about a big round of applause for the staff here, conference coordinators, for bringing us together in a good way. It's a true honor. Housekeeping, once again, housekeeping notes. First of all, I'd like to welcome back the live stream viewers. Live stream viewers. Everybody wave to everybody at home. Hello. They're all going to bring beautiful gifts back from the Membertou Heritage Park gift shop. All the guests here are going to go shopping at Petroglyphs because you're going to get 10% off. And you're going to buy some beautiful gifts for your loved ones at home. So just put that on the live stream. So I want to welcome everybody. Oh, Christmas shopping. Yes, time to do some Christmas shopping. Also, too, if you didn't win a book, or if you want to get the book that somebody wrote yesterday, we have some in stock. We have some in some beautiful prints, moccasins, baskets made from our elders here, but also Escasoni and around too as well. Amazing stuff that we have there. So with that, also too, Wi-Fi. You have free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi if you just hook right up into the Membertou, I think it's guest account, free Wi-Fi. Unless you have unlimited data, then hey, don't worry about it. But if you don't have unlimited data, Wildfire altogether, WILDFIRE, is the password. No space at the end. And you'll get free Wi-Fi. Your managers in financial department would appreciate that. Once again, the washrooms are straight across here if you haven't found that out. And that's about it for housekeeping notes. We're going to start at 10:15 to 12:30. 10:30. 10:30 we have another panel discussion, getting to know your fisheries team. 11:15 health break. 11:30 group discussion. And we're going to have Jane and Heidi come back to conduct that and also bring back and report back what was discussed yesterday. At 12 p.m., we're closing the conference with the closing prayer, and 12:15, light lunch. I don't know what that means, but I'm excited for lunch. Light lunch. I never had a light lunch before. So, how about a big round of applause for our dinner last night? Did you guys enjoy that dinner? All right. It was an honor to bring my niece out, Jada Paul, to sing a song and do some things. And we had planned a big powwow at the end, but everybody left early. So that's okay. That's okay. How many people, by show of hands, won at bingo last night? Nobody. How many people won at the machines last night? Oh, there's actually two. You guys are pretty brave to put that out there, because we're gonna go see you after. All right, we're gonna go right into our first presenter, and Sabrina Whitman or Whiteman. Whitman, Sabrina Whitman, as a member of the Glooscap First Nation, has joined KMKNO as a ratification policy analyst in 2013. Sabrina holds an honorary degree in social science from the University of Ottawa in political science and Aboriginal studies, graduating cum laude and the Masters of Arts degree from Queen's University in Global Development Studies. Her thesis focused on the relationship between economic development and traditional knowledge for natural resource management in Nova Scotia. She has previous work experience at the United Nations Secretariat of, whoa, that's amazing. Worked for the UN on Indigenous issues in Aboriginal affairs in Northern Development Canada on both education and intergovernmental relationships branches. How about a big warm welcome and a big round of applause for Sabrina. We got her back from the UN.
So good morning, everyone. I'm up here again today to report back to you on the work we've been doing on the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq enrollment process, specifically the launch of the Harvester ID card. So we committed to launching it on the first day of fall, which is on Monday. So we're preparing. We have lots of work underway, but we're almost there. And today's discussion, or really today's presentation, is showing you all of the communication material that will be going out and updating you on what's happening. So over the summer in June and July, you would have seen all of us in your communities and reporting on what we're doing. And we had phenomenal feedback from all of you. All of your BCRs have come in or are coming in, and you've provided all of the information we need in terms of your advisory committees and your family names, which is probably the most exciting thing I've done on this process is the family names, going around to each of the communities and finding out who are the key families in each of them. It's fascinating. So with that, just again, what we're doing is using the enrollment process that's been under development for the last 10 years. We're piloting it with the Harvester ID card. So this Harvester ID card will not impact your band members. So for this fall, individuals who are going out to hunt will continue to use their status card, but this process is specifically for individuals who are Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia but are not band members. So they are on the Atlantic General List or they are non-status, and they have to go through this specific process. So if they're out hunting moose, they have to have this ID card, or wildlife, the conservation officers will be looking for a status card from the 13 bands. So this presentation is just showing you all of the communication material, as I said, that will be going out. So this is the actual identification card, what it will look like. Haley's been developing it. And you'll see consistently that there's branding through all of it so people know what it looks like. So with this, you have a little circle on the back of the card, and that is going to have a sticker on it. And that sticker is a very secure sticker. It takes us 10 days to get these stickers in, and it will have the assembly logo on it. So if this identification card does not have the sticker on it, or it looks like it's been tampered with, then it won't be accepted. And I've seen the stickers, I've played with them, and they're exceptionally secure. So the company that's doing this actually does identification cards for the Department of National Defense and the House of Commons, so that there's all of these special levels of security. And the ID card itself will not be like our laminated status cards. It's going to be similar to driver's licenses. So that's what the actual identification card will look like. Oops, I went the wrong way. So we also have a marketing campaign that will be launched next week at every single level to make sure people are aware of what the process is about. And so it will be going into local radios in all of the communities that have their own radio stations. It will be going into your newsletters. It will be going into local newspapers in the Mi'kmaq Maliseet Nation News, as well as on social media and on Facebook. And we have special algorithms too that it will pop up. But this is what the branding looks like that will be going on all of the material going out. And here's a little bit more of what it looks like. I know it's a little small for you all to see, but we just wanted you to get an opportunity to see what it does look like. And what's really neat is there's clouds in some of these pictures, and they'll move. And from a tech side, it's really neat. So then we have two other things I want to show you before the best part. So the first one, if we click on it, the link, there will be a website specifically for the entire enrollment process, and it's all based off of the newsletter that went out previously, and all of the information will be available on here. Importantly, every single document for this process, which you've all seen, this huge piece of, people have said paperweight, will be available for community members online. So we want people to have full understanding of how the process works and full transparency. So the entire, what you would call regulations would be on there. The guidelines that the enrollment committee will be using will be on there. The appeals process will be on there, as well as the terms of reference for the advisory committee. So all of those documents, as well as one really special document, which is a community members document, and basically takes everything and puts it in one piece, so community members, if they have any questions about anything, it's in that piece of document. So that way, there are no concerns that there's something that they can't find. The second link, we're just finalizing it now, will actually be to the database and to the application form. So when people want to fill out an application, there's an online application that they can fill out. So it's still under works right now, but when they go to the website, it will link them to here. You can also fill out a paper application as well. But again, you can see the consistent branding all throughout on the pieces that we've been working on. And then the very last thing that I will leave you with, which is the best one of all of them, is the video explaining the process that will be going out and launched on Monday. So we'll start it up, and I'll just leave it for you guys all to see. And I got teary-eyed watching it, and a few of you may as well. So enjoy.
Family is at the heart of what it means to be Mi'kmaq. Dami Wenabexi, Dami Lewin, Weni Gigama, Weni Gucheji. This is who we are, how we describe ourselves, where we come from, and who we are connected to. Since time immemorial, this has been our home, and as other people come and go, we will always remain. The land, the air, the water are all reflections of who we are, and because our identity is so deeply tied to our surroundings, it is our duty as Olno to be its caretaker, to ensure its protection and well-being for today and for future generations.
As the first people of Nova Scotia, we have Aboriginal and treaty rights. Part of these rights includes access to resources such as moose, fish, sweetgrass, and birch bark. But we know that not everyone who is accessing these rights are recognized by the nation as Mi'kmaq. For more than a decade, the nation has said, we need to define for ourselves who is Mi'kmaq and ensure that we have a process to protect our rights against people who are misrepresenting themselves as a member of our nation. And together, we have done just that. You have told us that in order to be Mi'kmaq, you must be born Mi'kmaq and accepted as Mi'kmaq. It's just that simple.
For us, being part of a Mi'kmaq family and accepted by the nation is what makes us who we are. You have told us what the process of defining our nation should be. The Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq enrollment process is defining for ourselves who is Mi'kmaq and who can access Aboriginal and treaty resources. It's not about status, it's not about band membership, it does not divide off reserve, on reserve, non-status, or general lists. Instead, it asks what Mi'kmaq family you were born into and continue to have a connection with. At the same time, we have been mindful of people trying to reconnect who are impacted by policies like the 60 Scoop and the child welfare system, and is inclusive of children who have been adopted.
The decision-making in your process is non-political. You have helped us to build a central enrollment committee made up of Mi'kmaq representing urban and off-reserve people, single parents, youth, elders, and the Mi'kmaq Grand Council. And in cases where the enrollment committee may need to verify information, an advisory committee made up of family members, elders, and other respected and knowledgeable individuals will review materials. You have asked for this. A process that is built by the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia, administered by the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia, for the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia. One that we expect Canada and Nova Scotia to accept.
The criteria for your process are based around our culture, traditions, and what we have heard from you.
The Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq enrollment process is the first step in empowering our nation in a manner reflective of our traditional ways and moves us closer to self-determination.
The word Indian will not describe our nation anymore. We will no longer just be a status number.
We will be known on our terms, through our identification system, through our own clearly defined process.
We are
Mi'kmaq.
Mi'kmaq, Wulanaginu. This is who we are.
Way away higher, way away higher, way away higher, hey yo.
Wow, that was truly amazing. That's a beautiful, very beautiful video. And so, on to our next topic, I guess. No questions? Not taking questions at this time. At this time, what we're going to go into the future of our rights to a moderate livelihood. We have a panel discussion. In getting to know your fisheries team. So with that, it's going to be moderated by Katrina Stevens. Katrina Stevens from Eskasoni First Nation. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from CBU, and has been completed the Indigenous Women in Community Leadership Program at the Cody Institute of St. FX, as well as the Business Administration Program at NSCCC. Katerina is a member of the communications team of the KMKNO. So how about a big round of applause and welcome Katrina Stevens. Katrina. Oh, Katerina. Katrina.
Hola, Lynn Jeffrey.
Yeah, there we go.
Again, my name is Kateri Stevens. Kateri-san from Eskasoni. Kateri Stevens. Kateri Stevens. So today, my job is to make sure everybody gets to know our fisheries team. So I'm going to begin by welcoming. Hello, everyone. Jila Suktik. Nina Dawisi. Kateri Stevens. Jeffrey. Anuji Maliaptamula Penu. My name is Kateri, and I'm a member of KMKNO Communications, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator. Today, I will be moderating this panel. The goal is to get to know our fisheries team. I would like to ask everyone to be respectful and refrain from interrupting. I know you all have questions, and everyone is excited to ask, because that's definitely what I would do. So please don't be a Kateri-san today. So I'd begin with giving everybody a reminder. There's note cards on your guys' tables. I'm not sure if you guys see them. They're little note cards. And if you have any questions, ideas, concerns, statements, please write them on the card, and also with your community name or where you're from. We'll make sure that the fisheries team get them. We are currently working on booking dates, community dates, and visits within all your guys' communities. And we're going to bring these answers back. And if not, we'll get more questions and answers from you guys from these community visits. So, Walalio, for being so patient and kind. Let's have a positive discussion. So, today, we'll begin by opening our discussion with Miss Viola Robinson. Viola is from Acadia First Nation and is a recipient of the Order of Nova Scotia and Order of Canada. Viola has been a trusted and inspiring leader for the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia for many years. From the 1970s, she has worked to end discrimination against the Mi'kmaq people, advocating particular for changes to sections of the Indian Act that discriminated against Aboriginal women. Today, she is a lead negotiator for KMKNO. So guys, before I get started, I'd like to ask all my panel people to come on up. So it's Viola Robinson, Justin Martin, Allison Bernard, Jeffrey Purdy, and Angelina. Oh, and Hubert Nicholas. Sorry about that, Hubert. So while they're all setting up, I'll tell you a story, because I like telling stories. So I'm trying to make it here in time, just like a regular Joe Mi'kmaq. I didn't draw on my eyebrows today, so if you don't see them, it's not my fault. I almost got pulled over for DUI because I was putting on my lipstick. But I'm lucky it was a Mi'kmaq RCMP officer. And they said they just didn't want to hear me complain, so they let me go. So, is everybody all ready, relaxed, good to go? Who's relaxed? We'll begin by talking to Viola. Viola, you have seen and challenged many of the obstacles our people face in regards to treaty. Can you share an experience that happened where you felt that this is a fight you need to be in and win? So you, yeah.
Hello? Well, I think the biggest obstacle that we had is initially in the beginning. When the Marshall decision first came down and we were all challenged with the right to fish for a moderate livelihood. And we really weren't prepared. We really wasn't sure how we were going about doing this, but at the same time, there were many, many people. There were many, many Mi'kmaq people out there who wanted to go out and fish. There were many people who had advocated for rights all their lives, like myself, treaty rights and Aboriginal rights. And of course, fishing is just one of them. And when this came down, it became, I think, a challenge for everybody to realize, finally, that the decision had really affirmed that the right to fish was there, and we had the right to go out and fish. So there was a lot of, and some people wanted to, like the leadership itself was grappling with the idea on how they were going to proceed. Some people didn't want to wait. I have the right to fish. I'm going out. I'm going to fish. and they were right. They do. But we were trying to organize ourselves. So in doing so, and we were doing the best that we can, and because I'm from Acadia, I live in Yarmouth, so the fishing industry down there is one of the main industries for Yarmouth and for Western Nova Scotia. So of course our people just wanted to get out there. Left out of the industry for so long, and watching people around you getting rich, fishing from your right, was something that was really a challenge for them, because much of our people who wanted to go really weren't prepared. We didn't have the funding. We didn't have the vessels. We didn't have the training. There were many, many obstacles and issues that we were confronted with in trying to go out and fish. So, and of course, we faced racism. It was horrible. For a time, it became difficult to live in that community. Everywhere you went, people, fishermen, there were signs up everywhere that were saying, support our fishermen. They meant their commercial fishermen. They didn't mean the Mi'kmaq. Support our fishermen, the stores, restaurants, and our children going to school. It was all there. And this went on, and it was very, very difficult. And we have to remember this was 20 years ago, and here we are 20 years after. A lot of that has been improved. The relationship between the Mi'kmaq and the rest of society down in that part of the province has improved. And of course, I don't know if you want me to tell the whole story. I think I said enough. One of the obstacles, because I can go on and talk here all day, and I don't want to do that.
You did a great job, Viola. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Allison Bernard. He's from Eskasoni First Nation and is a graduate from the RCMP Academy and worked as a police officer for 10 years. After policing, Allison decided to go on and try new things and help kids in Eskasoni school system as a guidance counselor. During his term at the Eskasoni Middle and High School, Allison ran for his community band election and was voted as an Eskasoni council member, where he remained for 4 terms. Allison joined KMKNO as the Fisheries coordinator in 2011 and has always been very passionate about hunting, fishing, and treaty rights, and importantly, implementation. Allison, fishing is very important to you. Can you tell us a lesson that was taught to you that may make a difference to how future generations of Mi'kmaq think about treaty fishing?
Well, Salamuk is in Louisiana. Also the mall in Louisiana. A translator. Do we have a translator here? Okay, Louisiana Spaskishka, good Louis, but down the Louisiana, I was no Nuchani, so I'm out to bomb. Band him in 25 years. So busy, Matnege go Chitana, Deloti, Mi'kmaq, what's going to be that? I'll say this in English. Well, I've been basically entrenched in politics and treaties and everything since I was a kid, since I can remember. So the basic teachings of Nedugalimk have been thrown right into my very soul. Since I can remember, I've hunted and fished. As you saw my son talk about how I transferred my knowledge to him and my kids, and so he's doing to his children too today. So, yeah, the old man, my father was a chief for our community for 25 years, and I did 8 years in council myself. But my true calling in life, I was a police officer. Everything I've done as a kid has always been respectful. Because, you know, when you're young, you're foolish and you do kind of stupid things at times too, without respect of environment and species and so forth. But, you know, my grandfather, I lived with him when I was like 16, 17, because he was alone. So every day we would talk. He was a POW, and he would go right into details of how we should respect one another and how we should treat the environment, because I was an avid hunter and fisher since I was a kid. He would also always say, you know, Atugulin, and I would, at the very first time I've heard that, I heard this notion of Nedugalimk. He said, Atugulin guis, go school them and I'm going out to get something for our table, whether it's a fish or partridge or even deer. In any case, he brought that term into perspective when he told me, don't take too much. Take what we only need in this household and what your dad's place might need. So whether it's 2 or 3 trout or a few lobsters, a few rabbits, or a deer seasonally, that's the only thing I took. But you know, the notion of Nedugalimk and being respectful to environment, species, and so forth was really entrenched at a very young age. So I think as we move forward within being Mi'kmaq and who we are, we have to be respectful of the species. And I've heard many people speak to this many times. Respectful people like Albert Marshall or Ernest Johnson, you know, within our Mi'kmaq. We have to be respectful of all species that are living and breeding in this planet, whether they're in the ocean or on land. They don't have a voice. We have to be their voice. So the term of Nedugalimk has to be entrenched in everything that we do. It's a foreign term to non-native hunters and fishers because they just don't understand. They don't have rights, they have privileges, and they're going to take whatever they can when they have that privilege to do so in a set time frame. But as for the Mi'kmaq, as we know, we've always traveled for our food and our activities. We were basically a tribe that journeyed all over Nova Scotia, Maritimes, and everywhere many years ago, because we were hunters and fishers. We were gatherers, so we knew where to go hunt and fish any different times of the year. But as we move into the future, it's more important, because I think if we keep on this road of commercially fishing and so forth, the non-native population is going to decimate and destroy whatever's left out there. So I have to look at it in many ways. That, you know, there's a song out there that we heard that Bernie Francis played, and it spoke about, you know, being respectful to the species and being respectful and trying to get out there to do our activities in such a way that future generations will have that opportunity to do so themselves. But as we move forward, I think we need to have and assert ourselves as guardians of all resources out there. And it's really hard to do, because DFO is responsible for that, because they are supposedly the managers of the oceans. But as you know, with codfish and everything that they do, they've basically destroyed it. They can't manage anything. I don't think they can manage their own households, for that matter, because you've seen the end results of what they think they own or they manage. cutbacks in quotas and tax and all of this other stuff that come to, our industry. And we need to understand that, as we move forward, we are going to have management plans in place for all species, because it is our way of taking charge, as we did with the salmon. DFO ran that for many years, and the end result is we don't have a lot of salmon out there. So maybe many years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we, a bunch of us, along with Chief Terry and other board members, we met with DFO, RDGs, and science people. And we basically told them, you're managing a resource unsuccessfully, and you're destroying what we still have in our rivers. So we took charge of that, and we developed a salmon management plan that's for Nova Scotia, and that's been actually praised right up to the minister's office in Ottawa, which is kind of strange. But we did take charge of that, and I'm happy to say that, in moving forward, at least salmon will be somewhat respected. And Mi'kmaq do not take a lot of salmon still today, because we know that the population is really down, so we won't go overfish. Most of our people fish in the springtime. We don't sport fish, as you've heard many times. We don't play with our food. We try to kill it and put it on the table in the most humane manner that possible. But as we move into the future, we need to start asserting ourselves. But if we do assert ourselves, we have responsibilities that we have to be accountable for. We are accountable for people that are not even here yet, children that aren't born, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, that, we exercise our rights today because our ancestors did the same for us. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their integrity and their drive to keep our people the way we are today. We are very humble, educated, and I think in this country, I can easily say that the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia are at a place where no other tribe in this country would be able to say that they're in. We have treaties that are entrenched within the Constitution of Canada, but again, I must say this, that we have to be respectful for the species that we are responsible for and what we can actually do out there. So this is very exciting where we're at today, and Nedugulik has to be entrenched in every person that wants to fish, hunt or fish as we move forward. Because if you don't know and if you don't understand the concept of Nedugulik, we will turn out to be like our non-native people out there that are fishing. We will decimate what we have left in the water. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to look at us and say, Mi'kmaq destroyed the rest of the species that were out there because they have a right to do so. So in closing, I think I have to say, as we move forward into a livelihood fishery, we have to be respectful of the stocks that are out there. Whether we push towards a quota-based system, but in saying that, I won't say quota-based on behalf of the Mi'kmaq. This would have to come within the industry itself. We have to get our share of species that are out there, whether it's lobster, the smallest thing as eel, snow crab, ground fish, anything that would be able to give us a moderate livelihood. We have to be careful and mindful of the species, because I really don't want to sit here 5 years from now and be told by an elder that you guys basically screwed up. We've kept these species here. We lived right beside them for generations and generations. Just be mindful as we move forward. I know everybody wants to fish, and actually, as you've seen in the news, not in the news, but in social media and everything, my son and other people are fishing right now, and they're trying to make a good go of it. There's no regulations in place right now that would govern us, but we do know we have a moderate livelihood, but we have to have something in place in our own governance system that will regulate ourselves from, hurting stocks and moving forward within the fishery. There's a lot of experiences, like Bobby said, I can sit here forever. I've been in court a couple of times concerning our rights, and actually at one point we're without a lawyer. In 1986, me and my friend Darren Google shot a moose, and we walked out of a very racist courtroom in Ninginish, a bunch of fishermen basically chasing us out of the parking lot after defeating the Crown. But in saying that, our fights are over, I think, in most instances. But as we move forward, I think the fight is going to be within ourselves, to be respectful and mindful of the resources that we're going to fish for. If we can't do that, then as you know, DFO will take it upon themselves and manage that for us. So on that note, just try to concentrate on the term of Nedugalimk and see what it means and what it has meant for generations before us. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Allison. Next, we'd like to introduce Mr. Justin Martin, Fisheries Coordinator from Millbrook First Nation. Justin is a proud Mi'kmaq harvester and a dedicated fisherman. Behind the wheel of fishing boat is where he would like to be right now. Actively fishing competitively for sport and recreation while exercising his treaty fishing rights. In his spare time, Justin has worked for years fishing commercially, in both the Gulf and Maritime regions for lobster, snow crab, tuna, and Gaspereau. He has extensive knowledge and experience in Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, fishery management, marine survival, and commercial vessel safety, and is a trained Aboriginal fishery guardian holding certifications in watercourse, salination, and electrofishing. Justin also has a background in communications, including film, photography, social media, design, and publishing. He will never turn down an opportunity to talk about fishing, cameras, or baseball, and he'd like to shout out to Mr. Jamie Heapster. So, Justin, some in the room today say that you used to be very vocal in your opposition of KMKNO. What changed that made you decide to become a part of the KMKNO fisheries team?
Just got a little hotter in here all of a sudden. I'll give you some background first before I start with that, my comment here. I remember challenging Allison about moose in Cape Breton probably 4 years ago now, and we had a very in-depth rumble with Chief Rod too about moose management. And I'm part of a community that has Janice and Stacy, both part of my community, so we've always had great conversations, shall we say, in community meetings. So my accepting this position has been a lot of dirt in my face, and but I'm working through that. So basically my opposition with KMK stemmed from a position that most Mi'kmaq people may feel, a position of uncomfortable uncertainty, that someone could be negotiating my rights for me. And I feel that that fear really pushed me into a position where I use my voice to find out answers to questions that were not being discussed or communicated with me through the channels that were set up at the time. So I took it in my own hands to state a position. My family's very vocal and visible. If you know my father or my grandfather, you know that we've always been advocates for Mi'kmaq rights since the 80s, I'd say. But my turnaround really came to a point where I was able to speak with Alton Gas during a community engagement session, and I was able to question what was happening myself, and using my own voice and questions, I was able to determine and get comfortable with where KMK and their function was in the assembly, and I finally started to understand what KMK was capable of and what they can do, and their role they play with the assembly. So I'm happy to say I've worked for KMK now for 5 months, and Viola and Janice do not sign my treaty rights away, so they can't do that. So I just want to clarify that, everybody. They can't sign our rights away, okay? But that joke missed the mark, I guess, a little bit. too fresh, I'm sorry. I kind of walked into this position when I was already facilitating this conversation on my own. I've been speaking with Grand Council and harvesters for a while now, and I didn't know I was facilitating, and thanks to Dr. Heidi for letting me know that I was facilitating this whole time, and now I'm trained and I feel comfortable having this conversation with all of you that, you know, we need to have a discussion about our implementation of our rights and how we want to do that as a Mi'kmaq Nation, and it's important that we all feel heard in this conversation. And it's now my position to do so for you and to give your voice a position within these negotiations and implementation of our rights. So I was humbled to accept the job. Like I said, I had a lot of blood and dirt in my face when I walked in there with my first meeting with Janice and Stacy and Allison. But I'm working on fishing full time, and that's what I want to do for a living. So I'm looking forward to having these conversations with you all and to be open and honest and transparent as I can to make you all feel heard in this important conversation.
Thank you very much. So next, we have Mr. Hubert Nicholas, a fisheries director for Membertou for the last 6 years and previously was the CFLC for Unama'ki bands for 5 years. Hubert is a commercial fisher and captain. Hubert has a bachelor's degree in education in business administration and a master's in marine studies. He also sits on various boards, including the Fisheries Safety Association of Nova Scotia, Scotia Fund and Fishing Sector Roundtable, and lastly, the FAC CNSOPB Committee, just as his examples. Hubert, there has been a lot of discussion about the need for treaty education in regards to fishing rights. As a member of the Mi'kmaq Fisheries Advisory Committee, do you feel that currently DFO and the RCMP and the province fully understand these rights? Estimado, our treaty?
I can honestly say that DFO does not understand any of our rights. They're not doing a good job of educating the fishermen, the community. We're not doing a good job of educating our own community members. It's something that I think that it's one of the items that we've talked about within the team here is that we need to do more on educating everybody on what exactly our rights are. A good example is people want to go fishing all the time and they don't know what they can and cannot do. DFO doesn't know how to respond anytime that there's they feel like there's an infringement or regulation law that was broken. It goes up and down the channels of DFO. It's not immediate, whereas a non-native, they know how to deal with them. The charge is immediate. Like, for instance, what happened with Ashton and Zach. They were not formally charged. They were given a piece of paper. DFO does not know how to deal with rights-based fisheries, and and RCMP even no less. When there's disputes on the water, RCMP tell DFO, you have to deal with it. DFO wants to always pass it back to RCMP because it's a criminal matter. So it kind of goes back and forth in limbo until somebody actually tries to put it in a box that says, you know, this is actually the violation. But they don't know how to treat Mi'kmaq fisheries because it's a rights-based infringement, which is something that we are entitled to. It's not against the law. So it goes right to Ottawa and back down, and they, you know, one of the things that the Minister Dominic LeBlanc told us one time is we have 40 lawyers at all times ready to deal with these kind of things, but yet they don't have a response. They don't know how to educate their own CMP officers. They don't know how to educate their own managers. And it's something that we constantly say at advisory meetings is you have to educate the fishermen, you have to educate your staff, you have to educate CMP officers, and you have to go out there on the wharfs and tell non-native fishermen, Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia have a right to this access, and there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot infringe on them, you cannot hamper them in any way, and this is something that they keep saying, yes, we need to do that, we need to do more of that, but they don't. It's only when something happens, somebody gets caught doing something that they feel is illegal, then they're putting out fires. One of the things that happened here in Membertou is we set out 100 traps, and they got cut the very next day. DFO went after them, and I was really upset, basically telling them off, swearing at them, and what they said to me is, we didn't expect something to happen immediately. We thought we'd get phone calls and we would deal with that. So they kind of are not at the forefront of what we're trying to do, or what our communities are trying to do, or what our fishermen are trying to do, and they see it more as, you know, let's put out the fire after the fact, whereas they should be going out there and talking to everybody, talking to all the fishermen. And one of the things that, you know, we've been saying is on licenses that are commercial fish and access licenses, they need to say, put it right in writing, right in the licenses, that the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia have a right to access, and you know, you can't infringe on that, because it's non-natives that kind of take it upon themselves and they say, you know what, you are impacting my life, my livelihood, and DFO kind of just sits back and waits for something to happen, you know. We've seen it down South Shore the last few years, everybody fighting. We've seen it in Burnchurch, you know, 20 years ago. They are not proactive like they should be. It's something that I've been stressing every time I go to advisory meetings is what DFO needs to do is be very clear. It's conservation, then rights, then commercial access. And they forget about the rights. It's something that they need to push and say, after conservation, the Mi'kmaq have a right to access. Then, if there's anything left, then it goes to commercial. And they forget that part. And it's something that I'm constantly pushing, constantly reminding them. And DFO, I don't think what they're more worried about the political atmosphere where, you know, politicians are worried about fishing communities, non-native voters, whereas, you know, we are worried about our livelihoods and access to the resources, but they don't see it that way at this point, I don't think.
Thank you very much, Hubert. Next, we have Ms. Angelina Amaro. She is a Mi'kmaq lawyer and a member of the Mi'kmaq Conn River First Nation of Newfoundland and Labrador. She holds a degree in psychology from CBU, a Master's of Education from Mount St. Vincent, and a law degree from Dalhousie. Angelina was called to the bar in June 2015. Through her involvement with the Mi'kmaq Legal Support Network and the Assembly, Angelina has taken part in several initiatives drafting a number of community-based protocols, including on Mi'kmaq hunting and fishing offenses in Cape Breton Highlands, the Mi'kmaq sentencing circles, the Mi'kmaq custom adoptions, and the Wigamanish Gigamanach program. And while you are technically not a part of the fisheries team, your role in governments at KMKNO has important ties to this discussion. Can you please tell me, do you feel that rights-based fishery could be a fundamental part of Mi'kmaq self-government?
So for me, that's an easy question to answer. It's yes, if the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia decide that that's what they want. If you want it, then it can become and will be a fundamental part of our laws. So, and we've heard throughout this whole conference, I've heard throughout it, that fishing, being on the water, being on the land, that is a fundamental part of who we are as Mi'kmaq. And Allison just said it the best way I've ever heard it described. These things are pumped into our soul. It is fundamentally who we are. And as we've heard from Viola, you know, it's really up to us to come together, to speak to one another, to listen to one another, and to begin building and designing our governance structure. What is it that we want? We need to come up with that. And a part of that will be to identify what else is fundamental to us as Mi'kmaq that should be included in all of our self-governing initiatives. As Justin pointed out, fish is just one. We have health, we have social, we have child welfare. All of these are going on at the same time with fish. So what else is important and what do we include in all of them as we begin engaging in decision-making, real decision-making, and lawmaking for all of our resources within our territory of Nova Scotia. So.
Wow, that sums it up. Thanks, Ange. Next, we'd like to introduce Mr. Jeff Purdy. Mr. Jeff is from Acadia First Nation Band and serves as a council member and deputy chief. He was born and raised in Milton, Queens County. This is where he grew up to be a very experienced with respect to our woodlands and waterways, as well as many other natural resources occupying Mi'kma'ki. Jeff, along with his wife, reside in Acadia First Nation Yarmouth community, where they raised their 5 children upon recently welcomed to joy with their 6th child, a little girl named Josie. Jeff's peace of mind is paramount when he is guiding others in the woods and mentoring our youth around nature, the law, and the lands and waters. In previous years, Jeff has been employed with Department of Lands and Forestry and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, contributing over 20 years' knowledge from working within the political and federal government level. Jeff shares his knowledge and experience with our Mi'kmaq to better serve and assist our Mi'kmaq nation. In July of 2018, Jeff was recognized for his integrity and commitment to the Mi'kmaq and was bestowed the honor of becoming a captain on the Grand Council of the Mi'kmaq Nation, representing the Gespuguit District. Hey, Jeff. Jeff, so I'd like to begin by asking you a question. Much like Hubert, you are also a member of the Mi'kmaq Fisheries Advisory Committee. Yarmouth has a very strong fishing industry, with Acadia positioned to be a leader in our rights-based fishery. So Jeff, can you tell me, what do you feel is a priority to share with other fishers in your region? What's a priority?
First, you told me I'd just sit here to look pretty.
That's my job, Jeff.
That's right. Sharing our knowledge, we have to listen to our elders and their stories moving down through, is they've walked the land before we have. They know the stories, they know the hunting, the fishing areas, what it was like prior to, and we're a conduit for our next generation. Much like everybody's sitting here saying the same thing, is moving forward together. It's who we are as a nation, and leading, moving through, like everything was said. Hubert Wells spoke it well, teaching the government what to do, making them listen. Our Senator Dan Christmas doing great work, right? There's so many bridges that we have to build and move forward, that we still have a long road ahead of us, but with all of our experience, our elders, our knowledge holders, right, from right across, that we have to express and teach our future generations, because if we screw something up today, our children's going to pay for it, right? So Allison's mentioned it, Hubert's mentioned it, Justin, Viola, right? We're just that conduit of helping our future generations. I do the same thing with my kids. Actually, with my son, I've smacked him back in the head for doing something wrong, and I still do that today, right? So, but we have to, right? And working together, it's not individual harvest. It's a nation that we're pushing as a whole community. If we don't stick together, that's who we are.
Okay.
We're here because we're a nation.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So we're getting close to our break. We're going to speed up things a bit. I'm asking that hopefully we spend at least 1 to 2 minutes on these questions. We have 4 panel questions. Please feel free to answer. And we'll begin by, I guess, we'll ask the first to raise their hand if they feel like answering this question. We'll just get it out there. The first one is, listen carefully, guys. Dee-doo-dee-doo. You all have a lot of experience working on implementing our Mi'kmaq treaties. What would you like to see come from moderate livelihood fishery that would benefit the Mi'kmaq? Actually, Viola, let's start with you. What would you like to see come from moderate livelihood fishery that would benefit the Mi'kmaq?
Well, I have to say the first thing I'd like to see is unity. I would like to get rid of all the suspicion, all the question in people's mind, what's going on, what's happening. I think moderate livelihood, and when you asked me earlier about a challenge, one of the challenges is we have to accept the fact that, as I said yesterday, we do have rights. We have 2 rights that we are working on right now, and one is self-government, and the other one is to fish for a moderate livelihood. These are companions. One can't work without the other. You need self-government. You need jurisdiction. You need decision-making. You need empowerment. You need to educate. You need to work together. You need to support each other because we're all going the same way. We're all talking about the same thing, the same direction. If somebody is going astray because they don't believe in what's going on or what's happening, then we have to talk to them and educate them and get together and correct it. We need to correct it. It's about correcting. It's about correcting history. A lot of it is, yes, as it was said, with DFO and with public in general, a lot of them are very ignorant about who we are and what we're doing. But it's up to us to try to change that. And we are working vigorously on trying to do that. And we are building our governance. So I think that livelihood is just one thing that is going to help unite and bring people together and put them in their right place in the history of Mi'kmaq people in this province for once. That's just one of the things that will happen. Self-government will happen. That will also. And all the other things that are happening that are a requirement that we need to have a governing structure. So we will benefit by being strong, by being united, standing together. Then you're a force to be reckoned with. Government will laugh at us as long as we keep pulling apart. And, I don't want to spend my time my own people I don't want to spend a lot of time correcting or with my own people, or having any disputes or anything like that with my own people. That energy is left for the governments of the day. That energy is left at the main table. That energy belongs someplace else where I can stand and really use it to defend and to assist my own people, the Mi'kmaq.
Thank you very much, Viola. Does anyone else have anything to add?
What I'd like to see is every single Mi'kmaq person earn a moderate livelihood from our resources. I think what I mentioned earlier is it's our right conservation, then rights. I think every single Mi'kmaq person of Nova Scotia should earn a moderate livelihood one way or another. And I think the way to get to that point is eventually if we owned every single license in Nova Scotia. All commercial access is owned by the Mi'kmaq, managed by the Mi'kmaq, for the benefit of Mi'kmaq.
All right, thank you. So our second question is? We don't have time. Do you want to?
I'm just gonna butt in. I just want to make sure people understand that I feel like our access to a moderate livelihood will empower our people. Viola touched on it, but to me, exercising my treaty right is some of the best medicine for me, and it has been for a few years now. And Chief Leroy kind of brought to light when I was at the powwow this year. It's just like being at a powwow. The good medicine, our traditional cultural access, to me, is that good medicine. And empowerment, more so than money, to me, is the most important part of exercising our rights. Sorry.
I had to flex to speed that one up. Number 2, in what ways do you think of collective Mi'kmaq approach can change the way the federal and provincial governments view treaty fishing and their understanding of moderate livelihood here in Nova Scotia? Whew, that was a lot. So what do you guys think collectively Mi'kmaq approach can change the way the federal and government view treaty fishing and their understanding of moderate livelihood debt?
Simple. Together we stand, united we stand, divided we fall. Right? So if we're together and it benefits all of us as Mi'kmaq people, that's what we have to do. And educate federal, provincial, moving forward, because within the government, it is an old boys club. They don't change, they don't try, and I've worked, like I say, over 18 years within DFO before I left, and it's the same thing, right? Don't matter what happens, you could explain different things to them, they don't get it. So we have to stand together and move forward as a nation to where we have to go.
Would anyone like to add to that? Okay.
You always cut me off. I was fortunate enough to get these questions a little in advance, so I had something prepared.
Justin Martin here.
Thank
again.
Our opportunity to implement our treaty right to fish in a collective manner will show governments and the industry and the public that we do not need the moderate livelihood caveat to control and manage our own fishery. You know, we've been fishing in a sustainable manner for centuries, and for Marshall II to be imposed on us and to limit our access just shows that they don't have any trust in us to manage our own fishery. But they haven't really fully understood our culture, because we only take what we need. And that's a moderate living or sustainability or whatever word you want to use. That's what I hope to get out of this, because the public needs to feel our culture during the exercising of our rights.
Thank you, Justin. Number 3, our people have had a close connection to the lands, waters, and resources since time immemorial. Too many S's in that one. What do you feel we need to do as a nation to inspire change with how non-natives and governments view treaty fishing?
I think it has to start with look at our history. If you look at that in global context, and I work with Heather quite a bit and other archaeologists, our history exceeds the Wall of China, Egypt, the pyramids. So we've been here since time immemorial, since the beginning. So a lot of that history needs to say we've been here since day one, right? Ice Age. So moving that forward as a nation, telling the government that, hey, this is who we are and we're still here. So going back and actually showing that before Christ, before the Bible, we were here. Start there and then move ahead.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Anyone else have anything to add? Just
Thanks for asking, but no, I kind of answered it in my last comment.
all right. Let's move on to number 4. And I'm going to ask Mr. Al to answer this. And I know it's been bugging everyone, and they want to know the story. So, Al, recently, an incident took place in Yarmouth with the Caesar, that's so Mi'kmaq, right? Seizure of lobster from the Mi'kmaq fishermen. Can you briefly tell us what happened? And as someone working in fisheries for years, what do you think can be done to ensure that this doesn't happen to our people again?
It's kind of a tight and tough situation to be in right now, because it is involving my 2 sons that were out there, along with a couple of other fishermen from Pictou Landing. But over the last many months, that's what I've been listening to. And I've listened to a lot of people within this province wanting to fish and so forth. And the only advice I've always given was be careful, be out of sight and out of sound, because we haven't settled on this issue yet. So in saying that, well, the boys were out fishing in Yarmouth. They didn't want to go to the I guess the troublesome area where some Mi'kmaq fishermen are being condemned for fishing in the Digby area. So they wanted to be out of that, I guess, spotlight. But in doing so, they moved to Yarmouth, and they figured they would be the safest there. Anyway, it was after their second trip that they were met at the wharf. It was kind of concerning, and it was actually, in plain words, a piss-off, really, to get a phone call at 1:30 in the morning by your son saying they want to arrest us for fishing lobster out of season without a license. At that time, you know, there was a lot of screaming and shouting happening in the background from what I heard on the telephone. And the biggest advice I told everyone to just to back off. Do not touch anybody. Make sure nobody gets arrested here, because you will get charged for obstruction if you do anything foolish, or assault, because our CMP were there. They were there I feel, for DFO. They weren't there to keep the peace, because I think they were helping DFO within what they were doing there, which didn't really actually sit well with me. I think that's a question that needs to be asked to our CMP more often. Why are you there? Do not take part in any illegal search or seizure of anything. Anyway, they night before, they had 80 traps or 70 traps in the water previously, and they had 12 crates of lobster from the day before. And while they threw out 80 more traps, so which brought the total up to 150. And I guess DFO was monitoring the situation, because locals were threatening them physical harm and telling them, you better be armed when you come back, and your traps, you might as well bring some more, because we're going to cut all of them off. and it's a waste of your time. We're going to burn your boat. This is what they were met up with before they even actually started all this. But when they hit the shore, DFO approached them and told them they were all under arrest for fishing without a license and out of season. And once that statement was made, of course, everybody pulled out their status cards and said, we're fishing for a livelihood fishery. You can't arrest us. At that point, DFO basically said, oh, okay, this changes everything. In any case, they did seize the 32 crates of lobster that they had after a couple of days of fishing. And you have to understand, there's 4 crew members out there that we're going to try to make a good living out of this and move forward with this. In any case, that didn't happen. There was a lot of fighting or arguing taking place at the time, and I managed to convince all of them, just take their business cards, take pictures, and make sure nothing happens to anybody there physically. So, in saying so, I asked that Ashton give the phone to the person in charge. It was actually a lady, and she asked me who I was and what I was to this whole process. I told them I was a fishery person for the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia and have been doing so for the last 8 years. And I report and speak on behalf of the chiefs if they choose for me to do stuff. I'm well versed in, as everybody knows, within the fishery file. So I told the lady, who I am, and your activity there right now is purely illegal, and you're obstructing our people from earning a moderate livelihood. You have no right to take their catch or charge anybody. You can't charge our people for anything anyway, because there is no regulations under the Fisheries Act or anything that will, let you do that. Since Marshall has been 20 years, I repeated to her, I asked her, the first thing after I spoke to her, she said, well, Area 34 does not have a livelihood fishery. I said, interesting. Okay, that's your statement. And I told her, can I speak for a little bit? And she said again, yes. I said, it's the basic question. Are you in Nova Scotia? And she said, yes. Are you in Canada? And she said, yes. Well, aren't you aware of the Marshall decision 20 years ago? Our people are fishing for a livelihood at that wharf right now, and it's been 20 years. It's going to hit you now more and more often. And as soon as I said that, she basically threw the phone back at Ashton and said, I heard her as she threw the phone, I don't want to talk to you, and she didn't actually say that. And she just threw the phone back at Ashton. And I told Ashton, just get their information and walk away from this. But I've learned over the last few days, last week, that, and I did advise DFO that this was a botched investigation. They should have learned who they were. They should have asked questions. As a former police officer, you have to do your due diligence. You just don't go in and raid people or arrest people for something that you think is wrong. You have to investigate and get your facts straight before you do anything foolish. In this case, they did take the lobster, they threw it back in the water, and it's $25,000 worth of lobster. A lot of time, effort, and patience were, they did a lot to get that. They thought that they were in good terms and everybody's going to be fine. In that case, it wasn't. I've learned shortly after, when speaking with Escazoni and Chief Leroy, I made some contacts that, and Tom Johnson, that we need to deal with this. Boys have their traps in the water, and they need to be out more sooner than later. CMP called Chief Leroy in. I guess the whole guts of the matter was they knew that there was a non-native fisherman on the boat with them. And he was basically a pilot, I guess, to go into the wharf system where it was kind of curvy, or how you managed to get into the wharf at night was kind of tricky. So when they were approached and advised of such a thing, they said, they told the boys that we have drones out there and we have high-powered binoculars and so forth. And in a return statement, they said, did you see this individual take part in the fishery? And they said no. No, and all four of them said he did not touch an elastic band or anything. But as we move forward, I think we as a nation have to make statements and make strong statements. I advise the boys to file charges right now with the RCMP for theft. And I think personally they should be sued for the $25,000 worth of lobster that was thrown back in the water. And I think as a nation, and I've said this in my Facebook post, I was pissed off and I was not happy. I'm still pissed off and I'm not happy. It's been 20 years. We still are being harassed. When is it going to stop? DFO needs to be held accountable for every action that they do against our people. 20 years is a lot. I calculated yesterday 20 years of a family household at actually $75,000 apiece. And I calculated to a tune only about 5,000 households in Mi'kma'ki, and it's worth over $1 trillion. So I think in moving forward, a statement should be made, either back off or we go and hold DFO accountable and sue them with a class action suit. This will not, I don't think, harm our rights or infringe upon anything that happens out there, but it would send a very strong message. If you mess with us again, we're asking for 20 years for every household in this province, even more. It is worth trillions. It's not worth pennies that they're offering right now. We need to do this and do it fast so we can live this moderate livelihood and bring it to the forefront of everything, right? But that's the whole incident, and we're still working on the end result. We want our traps and our lobster back in our community.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you for all. Well, let's give everybody a round of applause. Standing ovation for sharing their stories. Thank you all panelists. Thank you, Miss Angelina, Jeff, Al, Hubert, Justin, Viola. Again, as this topic is so close to everyone's hearts, and we only have a limited amount of time, we encourage you all to write any questions you have and provide them to the KMKNO staff. So again, those papers on your guys' desk, on your tables, just write anything down, statements, ideas, throw them out there, we'll collect them. Our fisheries team will do their best to answer all your questions as they move from community to engage people in this important work. But we also encourage you all to extend the conversation with our panelists. They are the ones working for the Mi'kmaq, you, all of you, and the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia in this field. So before closing, I'd like to give a gift to Jeff and Hubert. Smudging Bowls on behalf of KMKNO. And again, thank you all of you for all your time, your experiences, and your stories. You guys did a great job. And again, let's give them a round of applause. Numultoxip.
Cuttery, cuttery, cuttery. Son, Country Son. How about a big round of applause for Country Son? Great job facilitating. We're on break. We're on break. So we're going to have a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and wrap up our group discussion report. Yesterday, a lot of great stuff, ideas, and a lot of great talk happened yesterday. So we're going to bring back two people to present. Heidi and Jane. Heidi and Jane will be coming back at 11:35. 11:35 gives everybody 7 minutes. You got 7 minutes, folks, to check your email, update your Twitter status, read your Facebook, check your Instagram, or go outside and send a smoke signal to your cousin or loved one. Break time. Cue the music. Slowly bring it all back. Slowly bring it all back. 2 minutes to, or 1 minute to bring it back. What we're doing right now is we're going to have the group discussion report back, if that makes sense. So based on your group discussions yesterday, a report was written. The researchers stayed up all night because they look like they're exhausted. They stayed up all night. Oh, your computer is doing something. And they want to report back from what was presented. So, all right. And of course, first we have Heidi. All right, big warm welcome for Heidi.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm sharing this space with my peer, Dr. Jane McMillan, so I'm going to do this as efficiently as possible. One of the first things I just want to comment on is the importance of the voice. Earlier today and yesterday, I saw a lot of things around stories. And one of the things that really stuck with me was thinking about the first time we participated in gathering voice was the moose management strategy. And today there is one. So I was in a room with Allison, with Ian Knockwood, and Carrie Prosper, and I remember them saying to me, wow, you're in a room with at least 30 years of jail time. And that stuck with me because it reminded me of what was important and what was at stake in terms of self-governance and self-determination. So I've made a commitment over the last 13 years to be whatever part of that discussion I can or to help. The key is this is your voice. So I will share the feedback that's happening in these particular slides around how change happens. The first is the voice of the past. Jane as a human, Eric as a human, and Dan as a human, even though they all have titles, they all have jobs, they all have different identities, they are humans who express their role in the past and what they're doing today. The second, when you look at change, is the voice of the present, where you have the autonomy to choose the direction you want to go. And then the third is the mastery of getting it to the point where it's skilled, honed, and everybody understands it, and there's education and training around it. That's how change happens. So the voice of the future. The message, if we can go to the next, the message behind this particular feedback was that there are 5 key areas that were of focus. The first, and of course my screen's not switching, so there we go. The first was it needs to be structured but flexible. It needs to be focused on safety. Nagumulink has to be at the core of everything that happens. It needs to be an opportunity for the Mi'kmaq, but that doesn't mean that every Mi'kmaq necessarily is participating in it, but everyone has that opportunity. And that there needs to be strong differentiation between moderate livelihood, communal, and commercial, because there's still confusion. So I'm going to go through the questions. I'm going to go through breakout session number 1 and do question 1, and I'll tease apart the differences that were coming up in those conversations. The report I create within the next 2 weeks will have all of the different elements, but there were some things that stood out. The first is under who do you believe should govern our rights-based fishery? The main theme turned to more of a how than who, and it was follow the principle of Nagumulink. There should be representation from all groups. We should be using our resource management plans. It should be inclusive of all different voices, like today. It should include chief and counselor as facilitators, but not as the leads. And the message was very clear about having the fisheries experts and scientists as a part of that lead and having some form of advisory committee around that or governing body from the experts, but having everybody play a role in communicating that out and getting everybody on board. The other thing that was very strong, yep.
This is very important. If the people in the back, they would please keep quiet or sit down. This is very, very important. Thank you. There you go.
Voilà, you. So the message you heard from Allison and from Hubert and from others throughout the conversation yesterday was teach youth about the rights and preservation. And that message is throughout all of these different questions. When it came to the question around who do you believe should conserve and protect the rules developed for the right to a moderate livelihood, the concept of two I'd seen during the transition to a Mi'kmaq collective management plan was important. Recognizing the role that DFO does have in parts of this transition to a Mi'kmaq plan came out throughout some of the tables. Working together, but remembering that at the basis of this around conservation protection is to look at Ngumalink and to make sure that that is sitting at the core of every element of this plan. When it came to question number 3, do we need a collective Mi'kmaq management plan to help govern the livelihood fisheries? You can see from the question yesterday the answer was yes. But there were some things that teased out of that discussion. We do need rules and regulations. It needs to be distinctly about rights-based fishing. We need to make sure that we understand that there's individual communities who have different practices, different species, different resource management plans today. So it can't necessarily be one plan for everybody, but the rules and the structures in how it's governed can be for everybody so that there is some consistency. Again, who should be part of this? The fisheries managers, the scientists, and whoever is creating that management plan needs to have experience in the development of what's called a management plan. Again, these are the voices from the table. So then the next one, again, 4 was who supports our people if something should happen? This question, I went from table to table so I could listen to sort of how it was interpreted as well, because sometimes the questions are vague, and they're vague on purpose. One, because maybe there's not really a clear direction of which way to go, and we're looking for that initial voice and that understanding of what the possible answers are. Sometimes it's just because we know there's so many diverse opinions in the room, we're trying to make sure that they're captured so that nobody just goes down one path and forgets about a voice. This is one of those questions. Some of the themes, if you're fishing on your own, you take the risk. That's one theme that was sort of coming out. The other theme was said we should make sure everyone is educated on the risks. We need to make sure that the management plans includes an enforcement plan, and it has some of the information from how DFO is doing that today or how Coast Guards are doing that in terms of their training. But not necessarily their values and not necessarily the way that they look at conservation, not necessarily the way they look at sustainability. But can we use some of the knowledge that's out there today and then make it a Mi'kmaq collective management plan? We need to be careful of, these again, when I say we, it's the voice, can't abuse the right to fish. Allison talked a lot about what his grandfather taught him, about what to take, whether it was a deer per season, and a lot of great messages. We need the legal guidance. Hubert mentioned about having lawyers out there, but are they accessible, right? Can somebody get them easily? Can we provide that guidance to somebody? And we need to remember, and this is something that I stood out yesterday and I watched, and I thought that was very powerful, the stories that the individual people taking titles out, but Jane, Eric, Dan, and Viola talked about yesterday, was we need to remember that Junior had everyone behind him when you did run into trouble, and that made a difference. So the collective being able to support somebody through this, and again, Allison's talking about his boys and the boys from Pictou and what's going on right now, but having that collective behind to make change happen. So it's safety first, but move towards protection. In the second set of questions, we asked who should benefit from the moderate livelihood fisheries. and you see the split between Mi'kmaq Nation and all. And there's a lot of confusion about what all meant, all of the above, all people, all, everybody. So the voice in the discussion became very important. There is no easy answer. Everyone should be setting precedents for other so everyone should was the key, was one of the messages. We're setting precedents for other provinces because we've been engaging longer using resource management plans. We can be the leads. We can be role model in terms of what's happening. Ideas like Hobo, harvest on behalf of, where somebody doesn't have the ability to fish. These were things that kind of came out of the conversation. It was tricky though. It was really tricky in the conversation, and you could see it coming out that not everybody had a really consistent understanding of the difference between moderate livelihood, communal fishing, and commercial. And so that created some tensions in terms of how the question was answered, especially when we go to question number 2. Should only those that fish benefit from moderate livelihood? A skyrocketing answer that no, it should benefit all the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia. But there were individual voices that started to come out at the tables that spoke to, but I need to be able to take control of my own livelihood. I need, as a provider for my family and my family, to be able to fish, to be able to bring home our income for our family, to move off dependency. Communal has a role. Commercial has a role. I, as a person, need to be able to fish. So these tensions were kind of coming out throughout the conversation, even though you saw a very high 58% saying it needed to benefit everybody. Some of the wording that came out is it needs to be an opportunity that everyone can access if they choose. And if you're not able, there should be the opportunity for someone to fish for you. But it does not mean that everything needs to be distributed across all of the Mi'kmaq equally. And they said there are other portfolios, or we'll call it communal or commercial, or other ideas, or maybe even new ones to come that may be able to facilitate that. The third question in this was, what amount of income was reasonable for moderate livelihood fisher? And you can see way over on the right, there should not be a defined amount. And here's some of the feedback that comes out of that. It needs to be a blend between livelihood and conservation. Again, you heard that quite extensively through the panel today. A conversation about a grid system for the amount of catch and whether or not you purchased your own gear. If someone else buys the gear for you or you've invested in that gear, that's going to be a different story in terms of what your costs are, right? What you have to cover. Fluctuation in the catch and expenses are going to impact your income. So if you have a defined one, does that mean all of a sudden you're going to be out one year because something goes up or the quotas or something goes down or the price of something goes up or down? Talk about it being a free enterprise. Recognizing as well the danger. We've seen it in the great videos. We've heard it in the conversations. It's very risky being out on the waters. Non-natives don't have a specified amount, so why would we? Why would you put a label on, or an amount, a defined amount on somebody when somebody else in the same fishing industry does not have that? So why bind when one's not? Free enterprise. We need to recognize the difference again between that moderate and commercial fishing. So somebody said 150,000, is that commercial or is that moderate livelihood? Does it matter? So these were questions that kind of came up, and then conservation always came back into the conversation. Conservation, protecting, sustainability. The fourth question was, how do we support those who are doing livelihood fishery today as we build the process? And this is one of those questions where, as I was going around the room, it was very interesting to kind of hear what was going on and how that question again was interpreted. And the biggest thing that came up was we need to plan quickly because we don't know the answer to this question. But if we have a plan, we can start to put some of those structures in place. But in between that time, this transition, you know, could we have some form of funding for services? Could we have some abilities to make it safer? You know, are there things that we can do in terms of training or education that can help those that are on the water be safe, be protected, or understand the rights? Or does everybody call Allison in the middle of the night when something happens? What are the ways and channels for people to get that support? Create a legal network for livelihood fishers was another idea. And again, I can't speak, I know Hubert mentioned something here today, and I didn't know exactly what the structure of that was, but maybe that's an avenue, maybe there's something new, maybe there's an offshoot of that. The fifth question is, how can access be organized to be equitable for all Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq who wish to participate? And the conversation was about education and communication, education and communication, and education and communication. And this is where it was about developing a shared access plan, passing down information to younger generations, continuing from all those practices that are, 300 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, yesterday. These are all stories that have value. Need to work with the Mi'kmaq outside of Nova Scotia. We've heard that last year. We heard that again through the conversations. We have partners in other provinces who are working on things, but how do we kind of collectively come together and think about, what that means to do this on sort of an Atlantic or beyond environment. And involve elders in the training on treaty and culture was a strong message throughout this one. The last question, we threw this one at the very end, and it was the power of stories, because that was what was coming out yesterday. So as I close for this, and I turn it over to my peer Jane, where were you when the Marshall decision came down on September 17th, 1999? And what came out were feelings, emotions. I was shocked. I didn't know how big of a deal this would be. I cheered. There was tension. There were fights. We had to age quickly. We made change happen. And all of those words underneath are where we were, on the water, at Dad's, hunting, in the office. I don't know, we were with the chief and council, and we all had a big roar. We were excited. Change was going to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Much of the discussion that we had with the fisheries manager echoes the key themes. There's a trust problem, there's a big protection problem, there's an enforcement problem, and there's an allocation problem. And all of these can be corrected if the government is really interested in reconciliation. There is some concern about whether or not the government is committed to recognizing and really respecting Mi'kmaq livelihood fishery. So if there is such a commitment, then why isn't it going to be properly resourced? If the DFO can be resourced, why couldn't a structure that would create a management strategy for the Mi'kmaq be similarly structured? So there's a good discussion around fair share and resource allocation, and if there were an adequate resource allocation of licenses, then the question around food, social, and ceremonial and livelihood fisheries could be answered. And then the communities could then build with their capacity and the increasing expertise that is arising in the communities with science, with practice, with tradition, with Niduklimek, build a sustainable fishery management plan. So the suggestions coming from our group were that there needs to be a dedicated team that's working 24 hours, 7 days a week, building the plans, taking some plans, some various scenarios out to communities, getting your expertise, your feedback, because you are the people that are out there in the communities and know what's happening and know the resources, guiding the decision making, coming to consensus, getting that plan in action. There's an urgency, but it's really about fair share. Unbelievable, the stories about protection on the water. I was absolutely devastated to hear that there's so much bloody racism still going on, and it's just unconscionable in this day and age. So there's a huge problem. I don't know that just merely education is going to be the corrective. Maybe there has to be some better legislative enforcement. There's a lot of encouragement, too, from the community around self-determination and in enforcement as well, and that there is an opportunity for alternative dispute management on resource management that could be built in as future steps. So I think those are the key things. If there are people, if I've got everything, hopefully, but basically what they were saying also is livelihood isn't a dollar figure, it's a way of life. Everybody defines wealth differently, but they're keen to get a plan in action and get implementing Mi'kmaq rights, because that's the key protection that needs to follow from here.
So there you have it, folks. What an amazing 2 days, a day and a half. First of all, I want to, if you want to, last night they showed you the pictures of where the nets, we have the nets, the eel nets, the 7 eel nets that were seized by DFO 20 years ago. If you want to see them, they're next door at the Membertou Heritage Park. They've been there yesterday, and they're there today, and will continue to be there forever. So we want you to come see these nets. How and why they got saved is beyond, it's unreal. I mean, for that to actually happen, as a former police officer, been 10 years in the force, and I know evidence gets destroyed. There's a process for it. I've seen it. I've done it. We've cleaned out our evidence locker many times. This evidence, it has a spirit. It has a spirit. This evidence is more than just evidence. And it's here. So I invite everybody, and we haven't touched it, really touched it. And we haven't, I know me and Heather, where did Heather go? Oh, there you are, me, Heather. We got big plans. We're going to do all that stuff that's supposed to be done to it. But if you want to get a selfie with it, go to the Heritage Park. Also, too, make sure you buy lots of gifts in the gift shop because you got to get 10% off. And you might get 15% off if you got snow on the roof discount. You know what I mean? Snow on the roof discount. So we want to recognize the KMKNO for their hard work in running and organizing this event. How about a big round of applause? Just look at them. Just look at them. Say thank you. Walalin. Walalio. Walewin. Merci beaucoup. Thank you guys. Amazing job. I would like to thank all the participants for their dedication and your vision. Thank you for coming out. How about a big round of applause for our Chief and Council, for our Senator, for our doctors, for all our fishermen. Big round of applause for our fishermen. They're out there every single day and they're still practicing our rights. Some of them, like you said, they're getting harassed and they're still out there. So thank you guys. Thank you, 100% Walalin. My favorite part, door prizes. We got some amazing door prizes. That coffee that you received, that coffee that's going out, it's actually owned by Lorraine Whitman, or Lorraine Peters, who was just elected Saturday night as the national president of the Native Women's Association of Canada. She's from Glooscap. She's Mi'kmaq. She's one of our own. That coffee is going to be found in Sobey starting this week until the end of October. Now go buy this coffee because the profits go to scholarships for Indigenous women, gender and two-spirit students in the agricultural sector. Amazing, amazing. And hopefully soon we're going to sell it at the Membertou Heritage Park. So, how about a big round of applause for that? That's amazing. First prize, Truth and Conviction, Donald Marshall Jr., Mi'kmaq Quest for Justice, written by Jane, what's her name? Oh, unsigned. Get your pen out, Jane. Get ready. Because you're going to autograph this book. 06870009. Last four, 0009. And the winner of the Jeff Ward Lookalike Contest is Justin Martin. Wow, the winner said, I already have a signed copy. So we're going to redraw. How exciting! Oh, that was awesome. 068700018. 0018. While we're waiting, how about a big round of applause for our Grand Council? Our Grand Chief was here, still here. Where's our Grand Chief? Is here. All our captains are here. Not all of them, some of them. Captain in the house. All right, we got a winner. Yeah, 0018. Looks good. Pay me that 20 later. For the coffee, 068700023. 0023. 0023 for the coffee. Oh, yes. Is that my brother, Blair Paul? Rigged. Big round of applause for Blair Paul. Cabela's, it says from 15 to 500, but it's only $50. This okay, the number is 068700057. 0057. Do we got a winner? Oh, yes. Look at this. I said, who made this? She said, Haley's dad. Haley's dad made this. Who's your dad? Varick Francis. Oh, man. He's one of my favorite Francises that does baskets. That's your dad? That's my dad, too? No. All right, here we go. The lucky winner is 068. Really, he made this? This is just, oh. Again, from the top. 068700041. 0041. Do we got a winner in the back? I don't know. The suspense is killing us. Is she a winner? That was exciting. That was way too much fun. Before we serve our light lunch, and I see it's in the back, I want to invite Grand Chief Norman Sillaboy, Grand Chief, to do a closing prayer. And before the, or even after the closing prayer, we want a request for a moment of silence. A moment of silence to honor Junior. A moment of silence to honor the return of those nets. And a moment of silence for our rights, recognizing our rights. What we're also going to do is prepare a spirit plate. And there is a sweat lodge that is scheduled for this evening, and it's at the Heritage Park. It's at 6 p.m. And we're going to take that spirit plate, and it's going to be part of our ceremony. And what an honor to pray. And we'll pray for everybody's safe journey home, and we thank you for coming. At this time, I want to invite our Grand Chief up to do our final closing prayer and say a few words. Thank you.
Wala liyo. Del jugidayo. Wala sim seruan. Wali skut ke. Ako iskut asi wala go akiskuk. Wala siya. Deli mo iskomo. China ma. Dan kisklado kowe. Nego ma na kisya kismad nige. Dan deli Gudam dim. Gulu si gishka dahwe skodman. Kes masud mo. Gulu weedum. We go na dan deli junior all deli abon muksi junior dan we go biban maybe weedman. Junior na do masama Kes mo nakto mo lasit kamo mo gahay ilay no bego gis bijalo je pugol ke go e pamaso snag tel mo snag adlay do mo delay no ga na we go ma delo je sadmiris tandeli konam dim kisko tandeli tanta dim Lian Nahoe Trust Junior dan Delmen Wagasnek dan Tudli abon Watki Nukol Titki down Nudaj abon Makan may go away is abon dan Liado Suli away Gislide or go away and we go mark at a wage. Kisi akatasin na. Judabu era edu skodum. Bulaguna Westwood Megab Grand Council Nagamok na, kasi uncles could sign on do it, no 3 deal. MC Grand Council, minimum age, MC Grand Council representative, MC district, so don't go school does it. Klaman, kasi manage, MC one will dare to go away. Could any well does he? Tana Lanago, Gisco, but the least good as it. They move, no, was a Nova Scotia, Grand Council, then they'll did made, sit, because he include all in our districts, so when it down to West good as it go. Clement said one a lot to, till it's good as it go. If you be away, and I go do scudum, now, no day, Captain Minen, September 28th, ordain all which is ministry Antigonish. So we them Nagamoy, but Minogay, Grand Council, invite all and went down Gislian. More Allah do down there's a clock, at 20, hold on. 4? Yeah, 4 o'clock, and the medley are going. Okay? Then I come do school, but do weed them up. Okay, that way, and sit one, and then and meet. Modali, well, Galokan, and daily and meet. Okay, yeah, so my. Well, all in Niscom, well, all in Delhi, Quay Weir, Wolago, Akisco, well, all in. Msidwana well is good get out is good mayor. That way Msakoi will like how is good as so is good man and mayor. Not Leach, I mean.
Just final remarks. Thank you guys. Drive safely. We pray that everybody gets home safely. There's a light lunch in the back. Light lunch in the back. It's bag lunch. So make sure you guys get a light lunch before you leave. Well, and thank you guys very much. Have a good day. Up to Multus. See you later.